Inescapable. That's the Nothing Personal Word of the Day. It is Tuesday, August 12th, 2025. Happy birthday to all those who have a birthday on August 12th. Second best day of the year for a birthday. Inescapable is what it is when the Minnesota Twins play the New York Yankees. It is the single worst feeling in the world to know that you are dominated by a team in a way that is inescapable. You see, since the start of the 2002 season, the Yankees are 124-44 versus the Minnesota Twins. That, of course, includes the postseason when the Yankees are their daddy. It is a remarkable thing when you can have one team dominate the other with a cast of totally different characters. It is beyond explanation. There is no statistical reason for it because it's not as though you've got a Federer Djokovic situation, Nadal, where you're playing everybody else and they just win against everybody. It's the same single individual. I never understood when our team would lose to the same team. We got dominated over a period of years by the Philadelphia Phillies with totally different players. And I'd sit and talk to the players and they would say to me, we don't even think about it because it wasn't us. And then all of a sudden it's them. And once in a while, there's a through thread. There's a player who's been a part of multiple incarnations of a team who still can't lose or can't win against a team. So I'm watching last night as Bellinger, he has nothing to do with the Yankees since 2002. He's brand new. Gone. Home run. Stanton's been around 5-6 years, so he's been a part of that. But this started in 2002. Home run. Rice? Forget it. First timer. Gone. Home run. I just smile at the whole thing because the worst thing when you are going into a game or going into a meeting or going into a situation, when you go in with an attitude that you can't win, you don't win. You have to go in with the attitude that you've got this. Now, it doesn't matter, then you're going to say, but the Twins did a fire sale. They traded out 10 or 15 members of their 26-man roster on July 31st, and now they're a totally different team. Well, again, doesn't matter. What would explain that type of domination? Nothing. There's not one rational way to do it. It's not about ballpark. It's not about the Yankees payroll, the Twins payroll. The Twins have been successful over the years, actually. Plenty of postseason appearances. So I have no idea, as we're sitting here today, how I could have gone an entire day yesterday and not had the Yankees as my pick of the day. I have no idea. It's like idiocy. Instead, I figured it's unlikely that Garrett Crochet is going to have a tough game because he hasn't had many tough games. So that made sense for the pick of the day, and it did not work. It could have made sense to go with Eovaldi. Eovaldi, who I complimented just yesterday on the show as being Cy Young worthy, Elaine, and instead he went out and got absolutely crushed. Which brings me to my conclusion about aces, about number one starters, that it's way better to have some sort of domination over a team that is without reason than it is to assume that your number one starter is going to get the job done. Now, we could argue that, and Coca may argue with me, that is DeGrom number one, is Eovaldi number one on the Rangers. It's not Kelly for sure. It's not Patrick Corbin, Ovs. But I would put Eovaldi as a co-number one with DeGrom. But so the point remains that having your number one starter, and it's something that's so important when you're putting together a team, when you're thinking about a playoff run, you always focus on the name that you write down as game one starter. You need strength. You need dominance. You need the possibility of the inescapable reality that the other team thinks they can't beat you. It is such a powerful elixir in baseball. No matter how much starting pitching has gone by the wayside, or no matter how much you think it's been undervalued by analytic GMs, the fact is starting pitching to me will always matter. And having that ace is supposed to be what gives a clubhouse this feeling that everything's going to be okay. That if there's a losing streak, it's going to be stopped. If there's a winning streak, it's going to be continued. That everything will be exactly as it should because you have one of few aces, or one of 30 number ones, but one of few aces. Last night was an example where it just doesn't matter. You put Eovaldi out there, you put Crochet out there. That's it. So, what do I conclude as I analyze, thinking about what I did wrong over the years or how you can be more successful running a team? And it seems like if you can find a team that you just crush, then that's the way to go. Like team by team. We always used to do it. We did it wrong. We did it like player by player breakdowns. We did when we were deciding matchups. We'd look at how many at-bats you have against a particular pitcher, how successful you've been. It's just downright wrong. We ought to be doing it by team. I can't let this pass without talking about what the Brewers did last night. I think I'm committed to talking about the Brewers until they lose. And right now they've won 10 games in a row. Is it possible tonight's the night? We'll get to that in pick of the day when we've got Paul Skeens going for the Pirates. But in the meantime, the Brewers just seem to find a way. And so they are now on a 10-game winning streak, extending their lead as the best team in baseball. And it's hard to describe that. We're in the middle of August. So as you know, we're in the sort of middle of being late. Well, the beginning of the middle of being late. And it seems to me that the Brewers are in a position where they can ride this because this is not a fluke. This is just a great team. It doesn't mean they're going to win the first playoff series they play, which will be the division series because they'll get a bye. But it certainly does mean that right now it feels good to be in Milwaukee. Might I add, I do corrections when I get things wrong. And the way we do the show, of course, I'm going to get things wrong. There's no script. This is live. And I was talking about Ted Simmons and Coca. I have no idea why I was talking about Ted Simmons yesterday at all. But all of the listeners in Milwaukee, thank you. You pointed out correctly, Ted Simmons wasn't the MVP of the 1982 World Series. It was Darryl Porter. The Cardinals won. While Ted Simmons did play for the Cardinals, obviously, he was a Brewer in 1982. Coca, I don't know. How did you miss that? Just because it was before you were born? We had to have done better. I don't want to appear or have it appear that I am trying to go after Shohei Ohtani at all. As a matter of fact, one of the things that happened early on in Nothing Personal and early on in the career of Ohtani is there was this feeling that I was not either understanding his greatness or I wasn't interested in believing his greatness. And I have certainly switched my tune in terms of his on-field prowess. Then when the gambling scandal hit back in, I guess that was the beginning of last year, there was a feeling that I was on an island when I said that it seems way too neat and way too clean how quickly Ipe took the fall for that and how quickly it was investigated, how quickly Ipe went to jail, and how quickly we just blew past that whole gambling controversy. Fine. But then yesterday, there's another article that comes out, not about gambling, but it is an article about a lawsuit that was filed against Shohei Ohtani. And I want to tell the story quickly about this lawsuit to make sure that we're all on the same page of what happened. Now, is it a coincidence that this lawsuit was made public when the Dodgers are playing the Angels? Yes. Is it a coincidence that this lawsuit was made public when the Angels improved to 4-0 against the Dodgers with another win last night, and the Dodgers are clinging to a one-game lead in the NL West? Yes. Total coincidence. The fact of the matter is that this lawsuit could show the possibility that there's some stuff going on with Shohei and Ohtani's agent, who we've talked about, Naz Balelo, as I've told you, not exactly beloved, but that I don't hold that against anybody because there are a lot of people I love who aren't exactly beloved, and they're incorrectly not beloved, actually. The thing with Naz is, well, he's just Naz. But here's the lawsuit that was filed against Shohei Ohtani yesterday. When you have a business, let's say it's a real estate business, let's say you're developing real estate, and you want to sell units inside a building, apartment units, or you're building homes inside a development that has 50 homes, 2 golf courses, a clubhouse, and you're building like a neighborhood. One of the things you do is you try to get famous people to buy a place. The reason why is that you say it's going to be totally confidential, but then it's not. Because what you do is, in order to sell more of the homes, you say, hey, by the way, Mr. X is living here. Or you're touring the facility and you go by a house and you say, look, by the way, not this is quiet, don't tell anyone, but John Cocktoaston will be buying this house right here. And there are individuals who are not famous, who are rich, who feel like, wow, I want to be associated with that. I think that's super cool. So it's not entirely uncommon at all for a celebrity to get involved in a project like this, and then the celebrity gets paid for it. The pay can come in several ways. One, and the most common, is it comes in a discount to what the house is being sold to an ordinary rich person. So if there's 5 $20 million homes and you want a celebrity in a $20 million home, it is not uncommon for the developer of the 5 $20 million homes to give it to the celebrity for $10 million. That's one way. The other way is that you still charge $20 million for the home, but you pay the celebrity a $10 million fee so that the celebrity will make 2 commercials, will do a testimonial. I love this neighborhood. I love this home. I love this developer. So somehow Shohei Ohtani got involved in a development around the Mauna Kea Resort in Hawaii. It doesn't matter how, it doesn't matter what his involvement is, but what matters is that there were developers and brokers who were selling houses in this development, and one day they came to work and got fired. And it turns out what is being alleged is that Ohtani and Nez somehow were Machiavelli in this plot and were not happy with this broker and investor. And so they are now suing Ohtani, saying, hey, I was about to make millions of dollars with this development. You were brought in as an endorser. All of a sudden, you kept making demands. You kept making requests, and everyone kept saying yes to you because no one likes saying no to celebrities. And all of a sudden, you demanded that we get fired, and we got fired right when we were about to make money. After developing and developing, picture an agent who spends years developing a young player, buying a young player cleats and gloves and equipment and staying with them when they're not being paid, when they're minor leaguers, then they're big leaguers. They're about to hit arbitration. They're about to sign a big deal, and boom, they get poached. Somehow, in our industry, that's totally kosher. But in the real world, where you sign contracts, that's not as legal. So this lawsuit is filed in Hawaii, where the properties are, and it's alleging tortious interference with the contract. It's alleging unjust enrichment. And what it's saying is that somehow Ohtani got in the way of these guys making money. And guess what? Those are the type of lawsuits that judges tend to pay very close attention to, because you don't want to live in a society. Now, gambling, stealing someone's money, run-of-the-mill, armed robbery, active shooters, stuff that we see that gives us nightmares every day, that's one thing. But getting in the way of a contractual obligation, like tortious interference with a contract, or the concept of, hey, you agreed to do something, I agreed to do something, you're going to make a lot of money if you do what you were supposed to do, but I'm going to do something that stops you from doing what you're supposed to do, that's not allowed, and judges don't like it. This is going to be a tough one for Ohtani. It's going to cost him money. He's not going to want this to go to court. And in order to settle this, what do you think the investor and the broker are going to want? I'll give you 5 guesses. It's not a public apology. It's not a public flogging in the public square. They're going to say, well, there's 50 houses at $10 million each. My cut is 10%. So, hey, if you don't mind, I'll take about 5 large. I'll take 50 large. I'll take 3X in damages because I'm so despondent that I got fired. There's going to be a money amount. I have a view of cases, having been to law school and a lawyer, that didn't practice, but I have plenty of practice with lawyers, that you have to know going into a lawsuit what exactly the other side is after. And 9 times out of 10, the other side is after money. But 1 time out of 10, they're after blood. And then that's 11 if I do. 811, let's say. Thank you. Coca, let's start that again. 4869. When you go into a lawsuit, you have to know what the other side is interested in. And 8 times out of 10, they're interested in just money. 1 time out of 10, they're interested in blood. And 1 time out of 10, they're interested in the concept of specific performance, which is, hey, I'm just suing you because I'd like you to do what you were supposed to do. Please, because that's our contract. When Ohtani looks at this lawsuit and evaluates it with his lawyer, you got to believe that this is falling in the 80% where he's just going to have to write a check. God forbid that it's the blood one, because then there's no settlement. That's the problem when you're going after a settlement. It's easy to settle cases that are in the 80%, which is why so high a percentage of cases settle, because with money, that's just a negotiation. The problem is when there's blood at stake or specific performance, those are the ones that tend to go to trial because it is so truly difficult to get someone to value that the same. So we'll see what happens with this website. But I would argue, Coca, that Ohtani, not that we're seeing a pattern, but I don't think we are. And not that he's distracted by it because he hit another home run. I think, what is it, Coca, 4 games in a row with a home run? So it's not that. It's 3 only. 3 straight games with a home run. Well, this show is coming out tomorrow, and the Dodgers play tonight. And he's going to hit a home run tonight. So that's 4 in a row, Coca, not 3. So we're talking about lawsuits. I think we have to talk about Jon Gruden. It's so good. Jon Gruden, do you remember that name? I just saw, Coca, I wish I'd asked you before the show, the picture of his son. Is his son a coach with the Vegas Raiders, a strength and conditioning coach? I may have been totally fooled by AI on this one again, but there is a picture that I saw, and his son is jacked and had the same facial expression that Jon Gruden always has, like they're identical twins. It's that facial expression of, I'm going to kick your butt. It's that sort of one. 10th year? Where have I been, Coca? A decade? God, that is just, we should stop the show. We need to do, I don't know if we can't even take a break because we don't take breaks. Deuce Court, Gruden's been a coach for 10 years? That's it. That's it. Well, yesterday, a huge announcement came. You don't often see this. Jon Gruden got a major legal victory against the NFL. And the reason why you don't see this often is the Nevada Supreme Court has actually ruled in favor of Jon Gruden in his appeal. Remember the case here. Jon Gruden is suing the NFL. Do you remember the leaked emails that caused Jon Gruden to get fired when Mark Davis didn't want to fire him when he was coach of the Vegas Raiders? It's all coming together now. He must have hired Deuce to be the strength and conditioning coach, and he has survived on the staff. I get it. In any case, so Jon Gruden gets fired. Jon Gruden then sues the NFL. The NFL says, hold on, you can't sue us. You've got to bring us to arbitration, because there's a clause in every employee contract, including in baseball where I signed one, including in football where I didn't sign one, that if there's a lawsuit that you have against the commissioner, that goes to arbitration in front of the commissioner or an assignee. It's really quite something, but you sign it because you have no choice. It's sort of like the Michael Jordan charter agreements in NASCAR. It's just something you do, and then you realize, wait a minute, that sucked. I didn't want to do that at all. So Jon Gruden sued, saying not for the leaked emails. The lawsuit was actually, let me make this a lawsuit in a court that's public, that's open. I want to expose Roger Goodell and the NFL for that which they've done. Well, it's been a very much back and forth decisions from the lower courts, including the Nevada Supreme Court at one point indicated that they were not going to rule in Gruden's favor, which is crazy. But Gruden's lawyers kept, God bless our system, filing appeals. They wanted rehearings. It was denied. So then they tried again for something called an en banc reconsideration. Some people say in bank, which just says, please, that's what it means in English. I know we keep losing, but one more time. Like, just give me one more minute if you don't mind. And it worked. That's insane. The Nevada Supreme Court ruled 5-2. Yeah, Jon Gruden's not an employee anymore. When he filed the lawsuit, he wasn't an employee. Forget that. This doesn't have to be in arbitration. This can be in regular court. So guess what? Now, with that win, you may see either a settlement, because the NFL's like, hold on, we can't be in court. There's going to be way too much dirty laundry. Or what you may see is Gruden saying, I'm not in the 80%. Don't be ridiculous. I don't care what check you write. I want blood. So, what does the NFL do? They have the option when you lose in a Supreme Court, a state Supreme Court, you have the option to then appeal. There's still more. You could appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. Here's the thing about the U.S. Supreme Court. You can't just appeal to them and all of a sudden your case is in front of the Supreme Court. You actually have to request that the Supreme Court even hears your case. So the NFL, in theory, could file an application, a writ, which says, please, I would like you to hear this case because we need to be in arbitration. Then the Supreme Court sits around and they decide what they want to hear and what they don't. There is no chance in my mind the U.S. Supreme Court will hear a case about arbitration versus going to court and what it is when it's not an employee. As a matter of fact, I am so sure that the U.S. Supreme Court will not hear the Gruden case. Coca, I'm so sure that I'm willing to make it a wait to see. An official wait to see. When we tell you something's going to happen, if it does, great. If it doesn't, great. Either way, we will revisit it like we did yesterday with one that was almost a year old. We've got some open ones that you can see on davidsamsonpodcast.com. Just go to the website, check out the merch, which is fun merch. Send me your pictures wearing the merch. Then go to the tracking doc, and you can see every one of the wait to sees we have. Make it official, Coca. The Supreme Court will not hear the Gruden case, which means the NFL is going to have to go to court with Gruden, which means the NFL is going to offer to settle the case with Gruden, which means we're going to find out whether Gruden's in the 80 or the 10 of blood. He can't be in the 10 of specific performance. What, does he think he's going to get his job back? Nah. If he did have his job back, he'd have to figure out who's going to be his starting quarterback. I saw something The Athletic did yesterday, Coca. It made me happy because we're in media now, and we do things in media that, as an executive, always used to make me laugh. I've told you my view of rankings. I've told you my view of the analysis that's often done by people in the media who don't really have an insight into how teams are run. There's examples of very successful insiders on platforms who really amazingly just have connections to get info. They have no clue about anything. There's agents who have no clue about anything. This is all common stuff. But when The Athletic is doing a poll, and it's a poll of 6 GMs, 6 assistant GMs, 6 former GMs, 5 other executives, 8 current head coaches, and 19 other coaches, including 15 coordinators. That's a 50-person panel I want to pay attention to. Those are people inside the game. And the poll The Athletic did is, who are the best quarterbacks? I want you to tier all the veteran starting quarterbacks. And boy, did they ever. And it is awesome. I'd like you to always subscribe to The Athletic, not just because Pablo Torre finds out as a part of it. I've told you that with Jason Stark, Ken Rosenthal, Evan Drellick, all of the amazing people at The Athletic, it is well worth your time. And I'm not a paid spokesperson for The Athletic by any stretch, although, no, I'm not. So this tier, I will give you $1. No, I'll give you free merch. Wait a minute. I can't do that because someone could be Googling it right now if they're live on the chat with Coca on the Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel. If you're watching this, hit subscribe right now. You may have to sign up. It's free, not to our podcast. Just put your email into YouTube, then hit subscribe, please. But I wanted to give merch if you could tell me what tier quarterback you had with Tua. For all of you Miami fans, and for all of you Florida fans, I was curious what tier quarterback you thought Trevor Lawrence was. Now, what do these two people have in common? Tua and Trevor Lawrence have more in common than you think. Yes, it's two people who've never been in my kitchen. That is true. It's also two people I've never had to dinner. That is true. It's also two people who've never won a Super Bowl. That's true. It's two people who've never been to a Super Bowl. That's true. It's two people that got massive deals after their rookie contracts. That's true. It's two quarterbacks that have a 5 handle. That may not be true. Is Trevor Lawrence upper 4s or is he low 5s? Is Tua upper 4s or low 5s? Either way, because I'm not getting it right now in my ear, possibly because I can't hear. What is the annual value of Tua and Trevor Lawrence's contract? Are they $50 million quarterbacks or $40 million quarterbacks? I was going to say they were 50, but I could be wrong about that. But that should not distract you from the point, which is the evaluation of Tua and of Trevor Lawrence by people in the game is that they are tier 3 quarterbacks. Think about that for a minute. Think about investing in a quarterback, giving them like 22% of your salary cap, and the way they're evaluated by their peers. You're a GM. You gave this contract. And the way the contract is evaluated is that they are tier 3 quarterbacks. It's simply hard for me to imagine. And I would only tell you that if you are building a football team and you've got a tier 3 quarterback and it's your thought that you want to give them a huge deal, you're making a mistake. You're chasing Amy because you're scared to start over. You don't think you can do better. But the fact is that if you have to allocate all that money to a quarterback that's not winning for you, and listen, what's the ultimate way to do it? The ultimate way to do it is to have a tier 1 quarterback who is not paid. The problem is in the NFL, tier 1 quarterbacks, Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Jackson, Stafford, they're all paid. All right, so that's not going to work. How about going into a season having a mid-tier quarterback who's not highly paid? How does that work? Like a young, mid-tier, second-tier quarterback, C.J. Stroud. That's a good plan. You can build around that. But the ultimate, and what this poll on The Athletic showed, is that the best plan of all is the Washington Commanders plan. The best plan of all is to have Jaden Daniels, who is ranked 6th, the top of tier 2, who is going into his second year. He is not highly paid. You can build around that. You can maximize your salary cap. And that's, in theory, if you have good football people, how it is that you are going to be successful. On the other side of that, of course, you don't want to be, Kyler Murray. You don't want to be the Cardinals where you're in tier 3, you're overpaid, you're not winning. And the thought was, hey, you're going to win. It's a pretty telling poll. Go find it on The Athletic and then find where your quarterback is. Now, you may laugh if you're a Jets fan and say, okay, it makes sense that Justin Fields is the bottom. He's tier 4. Well, actually, the bottom is Pickett, but let's not talk about that. We're talking about tier 4. You've got Justin Fields as the 27th ranked quarterback, but you're saying to yourself, the Jets are going to stink, but you're saying to yourself, at least I didn't give him 50. And then You hope for overperformance. You hope for the possibility that everyone got it wrong but you. I think it's what the Giants are hoping for with Russell Wilson, where you just say to yourself, I really assume that I am able to outsmart everybody else. Are you? Well, we're about to find out when week 1 starts in just a couple weeks. Can't wait. Way to go, Joe Burrow. Tomorrow is Wednesday, Coca. You know what that means? Bring it up. That means it's so you want to talk to Samson Wednesday. Samson is a quarterback in the... One second here, Coca. Thank you. 4869. Hi, my name is David Samson. Okay, I'm good. Can I just tell people what's happening live right now? If you don't mind. I've got a very weird feeling that I don't want to stop the show. I'm not going to stop the show. I can't tell if it's anxiety, and I'm just being totally honest with you all right now. I can't tell if it's that, or I had a story told to me last night, Coke, about several people who I didn't realize had heart attacks. So I'm feeling right now as though I'm having one, but I do have anxiety. So I've got the sweat of anxiety. I'm trying to cross my toes right now, but I feel sort of strange, and I felt it since the start of the show, but I didn't want to stop the show. And I'm not going to stop the show, but I just had a moment where I said Samson and quarterback. I don't know why I did that, but I'm okay. I don't want anyone to panic. Just leave it to me. I'll do the panicking for everybody. And I love you all if it turns out that I got it wrong and it wasn't a panic attack. Criminy, Coca. God, being live is funny, isn't it? Especially when you're alone. So you want to talk to Samson. That's a character in a movie called Half Baked. And I sort of wish that I were half baked right now because I think it would take the edge off and would make me realize it's definitely only anxiety and panic. But Wednesday, second hour, I'm going to answer your questions. Leave your voicemails, 631-377-4869. Call. If it's under 2 minutes, I'll listen. If it's under 1 minute, you might make the show. 631-377-4869. All right, Coca, how about the review? It's time for the review, and I watch a movie every day no matter how I feel, no matter how the pool of sweat is building up underneath my kneecaps. And I asked yesterday whether or not there'd be any chance that when I say I'm going to watch a movie, that you say, please don't. And I want to give credit to the 8 of you who reached out and said to me, do not watch The Pickup. I realize that it was idiocy of me to tell you that I'm going to announce what I'm going to watch, and then you're going to tell me not to watch it, and then I'm not going to watch it. Of course I'm going to watch it. So don't worry, but I do want to hear your view. The Pickup stars Pete Davidson and Eddie Murphy. It's an Amazon movie. Of course you got to watch that. That's got to be funny. The Pickup, Coca, it's a disgrace to Eddie Murphy's talent. It's a disgrace to Pete Davidson's better movies. I don't understand how this got greenlit. I don't understand how, when it was being made, an executive at Amazon didn't step on set, look at the dailies and say, this is a POS. We cannot release this with a straight face. We cannot do this to Eddie Murphy's career. Pete Davidson would ever take the check. We can't do it to Eddie Murphy's career. We're going to pay him this same amount of money, and we're going to do it out of love, which of course goes against every bit of my business acumen. But we are going to do it out of love, and we are not going to release this movie. It's a movie about 2 guys who are security armed truck drivers who get robbed when Pete Davidson falls in love with a robber who's a woman played by, is it Keke Palmer, who then says, thank you for that. That was fun, but now I'm going to rob you. And then they end up together, or do they? It's all quite bizarre, and it's ridiculous. It's so bad, Coca. I'm not taking another minute on it. I'm just not. I get fooled on the internet a lot. As you know, I think it's been a pretty common theme in recent shows where I have asked Coca what's true, what's not true. I've spoken to him about AI. I have spoken to you and reviewed movies about the concept of people who are using the internet as a way to get extorted and to extort. I've talked about the fact that if you click on a link, you can get a virus. If you click on a link, sometimes you have to give money, but don't, like the whole package. Or you get a phone call that sounds like the voice of your child. Oh my God, I've been in an accident. I'm in jail. Please send 10 grand. The whole package. I read a story by Dan Wetzel yesterday that Coca had sent me, and I'd not heard this story before. And it was about a young man who had his whole life in front of him. And he was the victim of a financial extortion that is being referred to as financial sextortion. And what's happening is that there are people in Nigeria, and did you notice one of the names in the story by Wetzel on ESPN was Samson as a first name, not Samson as a last name. And here's how it goes. You get some online love if you're a handsome young athlete, or if you are a handsome 57-year-old. You get some online love when you get someone into your DMs who says, hey, you look good. Would you like to chat? And it's a picture of an incredibly gorgeous person. And it depends. If you're gay, it's a guy. If you're not gay, it's a girl. Somehow they know everything. And you then start a conversation, and then all of a sudden you're exchanging nudies, and then all of a sudden you got a problem. Now, I have a pretty serious rule that you should never violate. Do not send nudies. Rule number 1. Rule number 2. If you think someone's not real, or that it's too good to be true because someone so beautiful is talking to you no matter how attractive you are as an athlete or a middle-aged guy, you ask for the FaceTime. And you say, hey, I'd like to meet you in person before you go ahead and do anything unsavory at all. Well, this young athlete did not follow those words of advice and got completely sextorted, and it ended up costing him his life. He took his life when he ended up sending a nudie to what he thought was a gorgeous girl. It turned out to be a Nigerian criminal who then threatened to send that nude picture to all of his contacts because they had access to his contacts, including his girlfriend, if he didn't give him $1,000. The problem is the young kid didn't have $1,000. He was willing to empty his bank account in order to make this go away, and that was $355. The Nigerian said, no, thank you. We want $1,000. And he said, the young athlete, I may have to kill myself because of this. And the Nigerian said, no problem. Would like to watch it happen. And it happened. I want to let that sink in for a second. And we've talked about and we've read about on this show what happens with social media bullying. We've read about teens who are taking their lives at rates that we have not seen because of social media. We've talked about the dangers of social media. This one is slightly different. This is the danger not just of social media. It's the danger of what it is to be prey. The thing about prey is that when you are preyed upon, the prey often doesn't realize that they are the prey. They actually think they're the predator. And the ultimate irony is that when a prey is mistaken into thinking that it's the predator, that's when it gets preyed upon. I would like to point out that if you are in contact with anyone on social media who you don't know, please, number 1, just understand that they're going to work quickly. Just know that sometimes these athletes or these people who are being financially sextorted, they're taking their lives within an hour of the first contact. Do you remember that there was a guy named Braden Marcus in 2021, 15 years old. He was contacted, and 27 minutes later, he took his own life. His parents had no idea what happened. 10 months later, they got into his phone and realized exactly what happened. The speed at which this is happening to kids ought to be alarming to all parents, ought to be a point of understanding where you got to talk to your kids. You have to talk to your spouse. You have to talk to your siblings. You have to talk to your coworkers. The problem is there's such shame around it because everyone is embarrassed if they get taken. Everyone's embarrassed that they have some sort of online affliction or addiction. My view is different. I want to share it with you, the audience. I share it with Coca when I get a DM saying, can you imagine this? And Coca says, no, she's not real. And I say, oh, that seemed too good to be true. You've got to have someone in your life who you can reach out to question your assumptions. It works with business. It works socially. It works in life. You have to remember that what social media is doing to people, it is creating an atmosphere where the line between what's real and what's not real is incredibly blurry. And all of the kids these days, all of the young adults these days, we're all in our room. We've all got the door closed. We're all on social media, and we all say, wait a minute, we're not lonely. We're not alone. We're surrounded by people. We're plugged in. We're gaming with people. But you are alone because you don't know exactly whether or not you're being taken advantage of. Do you remember the show we did, Coca, Adolescence? All those Emmy nominations? Remember what happened with that kid? You remember that even when a kid is at home in their bedroom, they still could be doing things that are wrong or having things that are wrong being done to them. Your best chance is communication. Your best opportunity is to understand what is the possible downfall to your child. What could be the roadmap, the minefield? And don't take no for an answer. No matter how unpopular you are, you're not there to be your kid's friend. No matter how unpopular it may be to take that position with your significant other or with your sibling or with your friend, we have to help each other because they're so good now. They're so good at pretending to be something that they're not. And they're a bunch of incels in Nigeria or wherever else sitting on the couch in their underwear in a sweatshop of greed and in a sweatshop of fraud. And it's costing people their lives. I have one small solution to it. One of the reasons why, have you ever thought about the offshore situation? When you're watching the Wolf of Wall Street, why they'd start running things out of the Bahamas, or why you have to, extradition is so difficult, which is why you want to avoid taxes, move to Monaco. You want to avoid state tax, move to Florida. You want to disappear entirely, do your online gaming outside of the U.S. You want to, there are ways that you can avoid things in your country of origin. I propose that countries ought to be getting together and dealing with extradition in a way that is not currently dealt with. You may think it's hard to find the sweatshops in Nigeria or the people who are sitting around at a home and doing these frauds, these online scams. I have a different view. I want to find them, I want to extradite them, and I want to charge them with murder. You may be saying to yourself, David, that is way too harsh. How can you blame somebody for a suicide? Well, I can. How can you bring someone in from Nigeria? How do you know who it was? We'll find them. The reason why there is no money put into finding people that are outside of the country in general is that the extradition laws can be so clunky that it's just the juice is not worth the squeeze. There's not enough resources to actually make a difference. You talk about federal government and state governments and where resources are going and deploying the National Guard left, right, and center. Well, I got an idea for resources. I want resources to go to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children suggests that you immediately report the account to a social media platform, and you can call the hotline. If you think that something's too good to be true, or it's too late and you're being extorted, call the hotline. There is help available. Tell your parents. Tell your friends. They won't be embarrassed. Why? Because we've all been scammed. We've all been defrauded. We've all made the mistake. When you think you're totally alone, believe me, don't feel that loneliness. You're surrounded by people who feel the same way. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children can be found at 1-800-843-5678. That number again is 1-800-843-5678. Thank you, Dan Wetzel, for bringing this to my attention. Nothing personal pick of the day. Pick of the day. Well, I told you early on in this hour what happened. We had the Red Sox minus 176 over the Astros. That's a huge, huge favorite. And I am despondent that I picked the one day that Crochet got tattooed. Crochet, what was it, Coco? We talked about it at the start of the show. He went 4 innings pitched, allowed 5 runs, 7 hits, and a home run, and they lost the game 7-6. I do not like losing nothing personal picks of the day, Coco. I just don't. So let's go to tonight. Tonight's a toughie, but I love it. If you're not watching Skeens against Peralta tonight, what are you doing? Brewers, Pirates. Any Paul Skeens start, you should be watching definitionally. Freddie Peralta is the number 1 starter for the Brewers, and they've got a bunch of number 1 starters. And there is an opportunity here to watch greatness. Great team, great player. Then there's an opportunity to understand whether or not a great player can make a difference on a bad team playing against a great team. That's the story of Skeens and the Pirates, who it's hard enough for him to find a victory, hard enough for his team to find a victory. But when you're going against the best team in baseball and their number 1 starter, who's on a 10-game winning streak, it seems almost absurd to go with Paul Skeens and the Pirates. However, every time I don't go with Paul Skeens on the nothing personal pick of the day, I lose. So what do? The smart thing would be to stay away from the game. But hi, I'm still David Samson. All right, I'm still clear, Coca. We're taking the Brewers. We're going against Paul Skeens again. It is the ultimate in irrationality. But the Brewers, best team in baseball, are minus 119, according to our friends at DraftKings. Odds are certainly subject to change, but how could I resist? Because Skeens isn't going to go 9. You're lucky if the guy goes 6. Although it will be 6 hitless. Maybe 6 scoreless, likely. But the Brewers just find a way, don't they? They find a way to win. Just ask Mets fans. So I actually feel good about this matchup. I feel good about taking the Brewers. But on the other hand, I am only 106 and 102. So it's really only a 50-50 shot. So don't fade me yet. I'm still 106 and 102. That's the nothing personal pick of the day. Brewers over the Pirates. Now we're going to take a small break, and I'm going to get myself together, stop sweating, realize that I'm fine. It was only anxiety this whole time, so I don't want to hear any sirens outside the studio. And when we're back, we are lucky enough, because it's Tuesday, to have Tiki Barber join the show. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to hour two of Nothing Personal on this Tuesday, August 12th, 2025. You're familiar with what we do now since June 2nd. It's 2 hours every day. And hour two on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we actually get to bring in a guest. And I couldn't be happier or luckier to have Tiki Barber as the guest. I want to bring him right in. Hello, Tiki, and good morning.
What's happening, David? I'm glad that other people get a chance to talk on your show than just you. Don't
It's
they get
so,
tired of listening to you all day?
I mean, I get tired. Coca certainly does. But listen, the opportunity when we saw each other in Cooperstown, it became very clear to me that having you on this show, and I've been lucky enough to have been on your show before, but having you on the show would be so important, especially given the announcements that were made about you. I want to talk about that. But I want to start with the Giants, your former team, because it occurs to me that the Giants are my team. I grew up actually not a baseball fan, shockingly. It was Knicks and Giants were the loves of my life. It was not really about the Yankees or Mets at all, ironically, given my career. And it's been 8 years, and the Giants have one playoff appearance. That's almost Marlins like. It's almost like I'm running the Giants.
Wow, stop. Don't self-deprecate yourself
I
that
know,
badly.
it's so terrible.
Look, the Giants they just haven't had stability for a long time. And I'm talking about in the front office, I'm talking about from the head coaching standpoint, and obviously from a player standpoint. And until you get that solved in any sport, in any organization, whether it be outside of sports or not, you're not going to find success. It's too randomness. You're almost just hoping for things to go right, as opposed to having a plan for how things are going to go right. And I think for the first time in a while, this offseason feels like there's a direction towards a plan. And that's important because I think John Mara and the Tisch family were getting a little fed up with the inconsistency. So it feels different, but it only is going to matter once we get to the regular seasons and we either win games or we lose them.
I'm interested in what you're saying about a direction toward a plan. Having run a team, I never wanted to just be in the direction of a plan. I wanted to be in the plan.
Yes.
And so in football, you say stability, and I'm thinking of a 25 or 26 man roster in baseball, how that would be defined. How exactly are you defining stability on a football team? Is it quarterback, running back?
Well, it's partly quarterback. So when I say direction, it's having an idea of where you're going. I think for the last couple of years, the Giants were all right, let's give Daniel Jones this long-term contract and hope that he figures it out, even though he's kind of having to prove it every single year. Let's go grab these three free agent offensive linemen. They're not really that good. Let's draft a couple guys and just throw them in there and see what happens. And I think this offseason, it specifically changed with Joe Shane, our general manager, in free agency. The first thing he did was go get two big secondary help, Javon Holland and Paulson Adebo. They're young, but they're also veteran and have some experience, and their trajectory is high. And so you started to see the inklings of what the identity of the Giants was going to be. And then you go draft well. You get Abdul Carter in the first round, who's an edge rusher from Penn State. You're bringing draft another D tackle and a couple of other free agents that come in on the defensive line, and it starts to show that the Giants want to do is play old school defense, hit the crap out of people, stop the run, and be impactful in the second area. Now, the reason it's not a plan is until you start executing it, right? It's a plan when you start seeing it on Sunday afternoons. I think the other side of this, meaning the offense, is that they finally got a direction in their quarterback room. Russell Wilson, he's a journeyman. He's at this point because he's been on 4 different teams in the last 4 years.
Wow.
Or 5 years, I should say. Then you go get Jameis Winston, who's a great glue guy, a great locker room guy. And then you trade back into the first round and draft Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss. And it feels like, man, I see what's going to happen 2 years from now. Whereas in the previous couple of years, it was like, I don't know what's going to happen in 2 years. And so the plan starts to take form this offseason, and it feels enthusiasm starting to permeate around the Giants organization right now.
Tiki, can we go back, please? Because I want to understand the definition of a journeyman. Because I've not listen. I view Russell Wilson as a past his prime quarterback who is a Super Bowl winner,
of course,
and had an impactful, good career, and then got overpaid by the Broncos. But
Well,
journeyman, is that 4 teams in 4 years, or is it 4 teams over a career? How do you judge that?
Well, to me, it's the speed in which he's gone from place to place to place to place. Because he was in Seattle, and then he wanted out because he wanted to try to win an MVP, and he goes to Denver to go try to take over. It's a bad situation with Nathaniel Hackett in his rookie year as a head coach slash coordinator. He has his own office away from everybody. It deteriorates really quickly, and the next thing you know, he's the odd man out. Nat Hackett gets fired. Sean Payton comes in. Sean Payton's gonna fix him, but Sean Payton's like, yeah, I can't deal with you, and benches him at the end of the season. And then he goes to Pittsburgh, where he's supposed to be the starter, but he gets hurt. And then Justin Fields is starting, but then he comes in, and the only thing he can do is throw deep balls. And then Mike Tomlin's like, dude, I'm done with you as well. And then he goes to the Giants, where I think he's always wanted to be honest with you, and once free agency became a part of his journey. And it kind of fits him, right? He wants the I don't know, the shine that comes with being in New York. And I think New York, the Giants need a leader like him, someone who's been there, as you said, David, won a Super Bowl, has a ton of experience, will learn from those mistakes, the ones that I was just previously mentioning. He's gotten himself back in great shape, and guys trust and believe in the positivity that he's preaching. And I'm not saying it's going to work. I'm not saying he's going to be great, but he's been in 3 different situations in the last 4 years, and to me, that's bouncing around. That's on a journey. He's trying to find himself, or at least re-find himself, because you can't take away his early successes back, in his early days with Seattle, including a Super Bowl champion and just a couple of plays away from a second one.
How long do you get if you're Russell Wilson on the Giants right now and you're running that team? How many weeks does this journey last before the plan that needs to be executed turns out to be directionless? Is it 5 weeks? Is it 8 weeks? Is it how does this work?
Well, here's the thing. This is why it's exciting, because the directionless won't ever happen. Because if Russell Wilson has a bad start, let's say that, and this could just be because of the schedule. The Giants play a really tough schedule, starting with the Commanders and then the Cowboys, and you have the Chargers, or the Chiefs actually, and then the Chargers, and then you get the Eagles twice in 3 weeks. It just becomes really difficult early. So they could be bad record-wise, but it won't mean that Russell Wilson's playing terrible. But let's just say he is, or let's say he gets hurt. And what you were intimating is that they would be kind of rudderless now. But the easy solution or direction is just to throw in the rookie. You throw in Jackson Dart and let him learn, sometimes what we call the hard way, by losing. Eli did this in his first year. He lost 5 games in a row, or 6 games in a row, until he eventually started to figure it out, and the game slowed down for him. He won his last game of the season, of the regular season, against the Dallas Cowboys in epic fashion, and it set him on a path towards winning 10 games the next year, and then obviously a few years later, winning a Super Bowl. And so I think even though Russ has the potential to not be the Russ that we remember from his Seattle days, even if he fails, there is a built-in next step, which is Jackson Dart, who they drafted in the first round. And so that's why I love this plan, because there's a catch-all, right? There is, if all things fall, then there's somewhere else you can go, and that's not something that the Giants have had in previous seasons. If Daniel Jones failed the test that was, are you our quarterback? What were you doing, right? Who are you going to? You gonna take a flyer on Tommy DeVito, who was exciting, and I like Tommy. He's an everyday.
There were some clicks there. There were some social media clicks with him.
I'm telling you, he's awesome. He's a great kid, but I don't think he's the future of the New York Giants from a quarterback standpoint. But that's what the Giants were having to rely upon.
He was at 15 minutes and counting, like very quickly, like in almost 15 minutes. So how important is the health of Malik Naber to Russell Wilson's early season success? Is that toe going to be a thing, or is he fine?
Yeah, he's a football player, David. They're not baseball players like you're used to, where if they have a pinky toe, like ingrown nail, that they're sitting out for a week and asking you as the general manager, hey, man, can I go on the IL for a little bit so I can go chill, maybe go hang with my family in Miami? Football players don't do that, David. I think he's going to be fine. It's going to bother him. It's going to be nagging, but that's part of this game. You're never really healthy. But to answer your first question, it is paramount that he is healthy and has the type of season that he had in his rookie year. And the reason is simple. In football, you got to score. Really, baseball, sport, any sport, you got to score. And scoring is not easy, and it hasn't come easy for the Giants. But when you have a guy who can take the top off a defense, who can generate big plays, get 20 plus yard plays, you more than quadruple your chances of scoring. And without Saquon here last year, and we saw him with the Eagles, the Giants didn't have, other than Malik Nabers, a guy who could go get you 20, 30 plus yards on a play. And so scoring became very difficult. And so we need Malik Nabers to be that player and more. We need Tyrone Tracy to continue to evolve into this runner that we saw last year. And now with Cam Scatterbo in the backfield with him, it feels like they're a pretty dynamic 1-2 punch. We need one of these other wide receivers, whether it's Jalen Hyatt, who's going into his fourth year, or Wan'Dale Robinson, to turn into one of these dynamic players so that you have a 1-2 combination in your receiving room and makes it very difficult to defend. I think Russ, of all his faults and his aging, as we've talked about, he still throws a hell of a deep ball. And so if you can generate events downfield where he'll give you that opportunity, and hopefully it puts the Giants in better positions than they've been in the last couple of years.
You know, the irony is that my background with the Giants, of course, is when they won the two Super Bowls, one with Sims, one with Hostetler,
Right.
over the Broncos, and then the Bills back in '87 and '91, January of those years. And my, Lawrence Taylor, Leonard Marshall, Van Pelt, like a defense where Everson Walls, a defense where the other team's gonna have a very hard time scoring. It was a different type of football. They've actually changed the rules now, which is an offensive player, it would make it's much more geared to offense. And the irony is that the Giants, you just described as having all these issues scoring, and they've also sort of doubled down. Their defensive line is incredibly strong. They're trying to stop teams from scoring, where it could be argued that doing more scoring may be more important than allowing teams to do less scoring, because the odds are you're going to need to win more shootouts.
Right. That's exactly right. Now, here's the issue is that in the NFL, you have to be able to stop a team. And when you've seen teams that have won Super Bowls, sorry, my dogs are going crazy. Hold on.
Live dogs. What does it mean?
Live
Hold on.
dogs.
We're live,
Right.
but what does it mean
Right.
going crazy? Was he biting you?
Right. No, they see dogs walking outside the front window, and then they start barking, and then they go crazy. And then my other dog starts barking. I have a Saluki who will bark once, and then I have a Dotson who will bark 5,000 times after my Saluki. So it gets crazy.
Very happy for you, Tiki.
But here's the thing, David. When you watched the Super Bowl, why did the Eagles win the Super Bowl? It wasn't because Jalen Hurts was the MVP or Saquon Barkley, who didn't really have a great Super Bowl game. It wasn't really because of their offense, even though they had some big plays. It was because they dominated the Kansas City Chiefs up front defensively. They got home with 4 defenders, which meant that they could sit back and drop 7 into coverage almost every play. There was pressure with the front 4, and so there was no solution for Pat Mahomes. And so getting after the quarterback is so important in the NFL. And the Giants have started to gear their identity towards that. We know Kayvon Thibodeau going into his 4th year is one of those keys. Brian Burns, who they brought over in a trade and signed to a long-term extension, is there. You draft Abdul Carter in the 1st round this year, and he is already looking impactful and impressive. You have Sexy Dexter Lawrence in the middle, Golson you bring in, and they're trying to shore up the front 4 of this defense so that it makes it very difficult for teams to run and to drop back and pass comfortably. And so I think you, as mentioning those 86 and 90 Giants teams, they were built on defense with names that you just forever remember. And that's the idea, right? Is to have guys on that side of the ball that are so impactful and so violent with the way that they attack an offense that you can't forget them. The only way that happens, though, is if you ultimately get to a Super Bowl and make yourself, the ultimate glory. But that's
the plan worked, though. If that happens, did you see Micah Parsons said that Abdul Carter may be the best of all of them?
I
that he may be
mean,
the best Penn State edge rusher. I
I
thought that
mean,
was sort of a funny comment.
well, I mean, it makes you feel good when the guy that comes from behind you is actually better than you because you've kind of grooved the pathway. I was that way for a little bit at Virginia because right after me was Thomas Jones. Now people forgot, how good of an NFL career he had, but he had an unbelievable college career at Virginia, broke all of my records, he played for a decade plus. In the NFL as well. And so you feel like this sense of pride when the guy comes from behind you. And I think that's what Micah Parsons is referring to. But I got to tell you, Abdul Carter he's bigger than Micah. He's just as explosive. And given his opportunities in the preseason game last week, he looked amazing. He only had like 4 or 5 snaps, but he looked amazing going up against Deion Dawkins, one of the best left tackles for the Buffalo Bills in the NFL. And so you can be enthusiastic about where his career, I think, is going to go.
What does it mean if he had looked bad? How would that have manifested itself? Like his name wasn't called, or he
Yeah,
wasn't getting off the snap as fast.
right.
Like, what does it mean? Like, because that's an amazing. We used to call that in baseball when we'd have a scout run into a game,
Yeah,
high school, college, pro, see one at bat and
I
come
know.
out and write a scouting report. We'd be like, "Man, you saw one at bat.
Right.
Like, give me a break here." And it sounds like you just did a 5-snap scouting report.
Well, here's the thing. You've seen it all preseason as well. I mean, he looks dominant at times, and he's at the point where he can embarrass you if he really wants to. And it shows up on tape. I think you're right, though. You can't overreact to the preseason. It's the preseason. A lot of the veterans that are playing in these games are just like, don't get me hurt, man. I just want to be ready for the regular season.
That's what it's for.
Right. If I get beat, so what? It doesn't mean anything. But the one thing I think you can tell from rookies or young players in the preseason is whether or not they're swimming in it. Like if they understand, the speed and the urgency which you play at this level. And I remember back in my day, there was one guy who I'll never forget, got it immediately, first game, and that was Jeremy Shockey. We played in the Hall of Fame game. He caught a pass on the sideline, could have just ran out of bounds. He stuck his right foot in the ground, turned back in towards the middle of the field, and trucked the safety. And we were like, all right, this guy's going to be good. And you just know. I mean, of course, it was an overreaction in the preseason, but it proved to be prophetic on what kind of career he's going to have. And I think we as Giant fans, we are seeing that or believing in that from Abdul Carter.
I got some pushback when Shedeur Sanders started for the Browns, and had a good game.
Yeah.
And I was reading on air like the tweets from LeBron and everyone else saying, "Told you so." Like, this is our guy. And I said, "I'll bet you $1. This guy is still 4th on the QB depth chart." Like, you have to understand the way we're looking at things. It's just totally different than the way others are. That's pretty much what you're talking about. Like with Shedeur, let's not overreact. And have him as like the number 1 quarterback all of a sudden.
It's the same thing with Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart looked amazing. He the touchdown pass he threw was an audible, right? It used to be very vocal, or not vocal, but demonstrative when you were calling one of those things, like, oh, check, whatever you're trying to. He just stuck his hand to the side of his pad. Little Jordan Humphrey saw it. Whatever route they were running, I have no idea. They had a man look on the outside. He said, "You know what? Run a fade. I'm going to throw you a fade." Just real subtle veteran type thing. I'm going to throw you a fade. He stood in there. Kubas, the right guard, got beat off the snap, and Jackson Dart was getting a rush right down his throat. And so he stood right in the pocket, threw this perfect fade to little Jordan Humphrey for his first career touchdown. And it was a veteran play. Right. Some young players, when they get into that situation, they're just going to panic. Right. They're not going to realize, like, oh, wait, should I throw this fade, or should I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll just leave the play on that was called. But he recognized what it was, saw the guard get beat immediately, and easily could have just scrambled. I mean, he probably could have picked up 8 or 9 yards just running the ball, but he stood in the pocket and he knew it was a huge opportunity for him, and he executed it. And so it's subtle. It doesn't mean anything. It's the preseason. He's up against the third string, cornerback over there. So it doesn't matter. But I think what you look for in the preseason is the execution of things like that.
Hmm.
and Jackson Dart had it. Shador Sanders had it. But we knew this because we saw Shador Sanders in Colorado and in Jackson State. He's a gamer. You know what I mean? And so whatever we wanted to say about them in the preseason doesn't matter. It's really what they do when the lights are bright and you get an opportunity to make a play, regardless of who you're playing against.
Tiki, how often does someone approach you and congratulate you on being in the Hall of Fame? Does that happen often?
No, but I do get a lot of. I think it's weird. I think a lot of people are so aware of me not being in the Hall of Fame, and it was because how much fanfare my brother got when he went into the Hall of Fame. And obviously I was there and I presented him, and most of the conversations I get are, "Tiki, you're in the Hall of Fame. You should be a Hall of Famer." And I keep telling them, maybe at some point it'll happen. They
Wait,
had to
you're
get
telling me that no one goes up to Rondé and says, "Hey, I love your show"?
No, no, because Ronnie doesn't look like me.
Oh,
Ronnie has a
see,
beard. I'm telling you, David, he has a beard.
but if people are listening to you, Tiki,
True, but he has a beard. He looks different. He's darker than me because he lives in Florida.
he's your
And
identical twin brother. You do know that, right?
I understand, but we do not look identical. I'm telling you,
All
it's
identical twins say just what you're saying.
but
They
here's
say
the thing.
exactly what you're
Here's the
saying.
thing. So Rondé never got above, I want to say 180 in his career. He's probably not 185 now, right? I played at 210 going to training camp. Now I'm probably, because still keep lifting, I'm now like 195 pounds. So like physically we don't look alike. Facially, he's a little bit longer, his face, because he came out first and he had to squeeze, and I came out easily. And he's got a
He's a
beard.
trailblazer.
He was a trailblazer. Exactly right. So I don't think we look alike, to be honest with you, even though people think that as twins, we obviously look alike. But if you've known me for a while, if
Hmm.
Rondé walked in the room and I wasn't there, you would know immediately it wasn't me.
But I know you.
But you know me exactly.
Strangers, I think, would have a different thing. Hey, when you get a handoff, I try to. One thing I love to do in baseball was talk to players
Hmm.
about what are they thinking when they're facing 100 and it looks like it's coming at their ear. Like
Right.
what? How? Because I'll never experience that
Right.
ever. What are you thinking when you get a handoff? And first of all, before I get to that, who do you not want to see when you get the ball and you open your eyes and you look at the gap you're supposed
Yeah.
to shoot, and all of a sudden there's blank? Who is it that you said, "Oh Christ, I
So
got to go the other way"?
I only played this guy a couple of times where it mattered, and obviously it was Ray Lewis. So it would be Ray Lewis because we couldn't block him. Tony Saragusa and Sam Adams were their two D tackles, and David literally, I'm using the word correctly. There was 700 pounds in the middle of the Ravens defense. So our guards and our centers, they were occupied just trying to move the meat in the middle of the defense, which means nobody could get up to the linebacker. And so Ray Lewis was always coming full speed, and you couldn't block him. So he's always going to be unblocked. But we only saw him a couple of times, including a Super Bowl where they completely embarrassed us. But on a weekly or a yearly basis, it was Jeremiah Trotter, who was a middle linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles. We knew each other so well. We knew their defense. He knew our offense, that he could guess where we were heading. And so he would just sell out. And he was heavy. Like, I'm talking thick, lower body, powerful, and just single-minded. I'm smashing into your head. And so Jeremiah Trotter was my nemesis.
So
And
tell me,
especially because I had to block him too. And here I was at 210, 208, and he was 260. Like, I would lose the battle. So I'd make the block, but I'm taking an L making the block.
but tell me what's exactly in your brain, because let's say when you have the ball and
Yeah.
here comes Ray Lewis, are you actually thinking, "I don't want to get hit, so I'm going
No,
to move,"
it's
or are you thinking, "I'm going to get hit and it's going to hurt"? Like, what's
right.
exactly that
Right. All right.
second?
So to your original question, what am I doing when I'm taking the handoff? So let's say we're running a stretch play, which is just like a sprint to the let's call it the C gap, because that's the way most people can understand it. The sprint to the C gap. We ran a lot of that because it allowed me to put my foot in the ground and make cutbacks, or just take it to the edge if I felt like we had leverage onto the outside. And so say we're running a sprint like that, and I'm getting the handoff. I'm trying to keep my body square to the hole that I'm supposed to be going to. But all the time, I'm waiting for usually the guard or whichever one was uncovered. So it's either the guard or the center, whichever one is uncovered. They would sometimes fold over the top. So they'd fold over the other
Hmm.
offensive blocker. And if they could if they were in front of me and they could make that cutoff block, I'm just going to stay on my path. If they can't get in front of me, I'm just waiting for them to clip the linebacker. You don't really have to block them. Like I always said, you don't have to block him. You don't have to make a solid block. Just disrupt him. Make him think about you as opposed to me. And whichever thing happens. So if he got over the top and was in front of me, I'm staying on my path and I'm running until I get hit. But what I really wanted to happen was I wanted them to not be able to get over the top and just kick out so I can stick my foot and go behind them. And as soon as I was behind them, that's when it was background playground football. You know what I mean? It was, all right, now I'm in no man's land. I'm not where I'm supposed to be, but they also think I'm not supposed to be here. So let's go. And so I loved being as a slasher and a cutback runner because it became backyard football for me. And then I was just running away from contact. I hated contact. I could take it, but I didn't like it. So people would always ask me, what was your secret? I was like, I'm running scared, man. Running
That's
scared.
that is a very powerful way to be. It actually can get you an entire career, which,
Right.
by the way, you have your football career, and we were talking about the fact that you're now in media. Is it longer than you were in football?
Yeah, yeah, a long time longer than I was in
Amazing.
football. I mean, I've been at WFAN, well, slash Odyssey, because I've only been on the WFAN side for 3 years, for I don't know, 5 years longer than I played in the NFL, which is insane to think about. But it's awesome. And I've this will be my 19th year retired, and I don't feel old.
You don't look old. You look great. I appreciate your time. We're out of it. I would keep you even longer, but you promised me this amount of time. Tiki, thank you very much. Make sure that we'll follow up with you on the Giants to see whether or not they have a direction, whether or not they have a plan, and whether or not it worked. And we'll look to listen to you pre, post game, halftime, and of course every day from 2 to 6:30 on WFAN. Thank you, Tiki. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you, but the only thing is on WFAN, we'll be talking Mets and Yankees, and why they
Oh,
both stink right now.
they do stink. I've been talking about it on Nothing Personal.
I know.
You're not going to have to talk about them through October. That's the good news.
Let's hope we do. Let's hope we do.
See you later.
See you,
Thank you.
David.
That was Tiki Barber on a Tuesday. Very, very honored to have him on the show. And I'm fascinated by his conversation about the Giants and their plan. And we're going to see what happens with Russell Wilson. And he answered our question almost fully, but I really wanted to get, haven't you always been curious if you were to meet an athlete, what would you say? What would you ask them? And the question always is, what's it like when Ray Lewis is about to crush you? Like, what's in your head? Are you thinking to yourself, man, I'm in serious trouble right now? But Tiki made it sound like it was backyard football and he was cutting and jiving and grooving and loving it. Yesterday, one of the things that you've now noticed about Nothing Personal is that we're live and that we don't edit it. If you're listening to this, thank you. We appreciate it. Tell your friends about us. If you're watching this on the YouTube Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel or on DraftKings Network, you'll notice that we don't edit and we don't and we're just live. We are who we are. So sometimes dogs are barking. Sometimes anxiety is happening. Just stuff's happening. Sometimes during the course of a show, news happens where we have to, and we don't play the breaking news music. We don't do that. What we have is Matthew Coca, who's in my ear, and then researching, learning, and saying, by the way, this just happened. And it happened yesterday. We were able to talk about what happened with UFC and Paramount as it was announced because it happened while we were on our show. And for those of you who didn't listen to yesterday's show, because every day there's new listeners, so thank you. But yesterday's show, we talked about the fact that Paramount, when you know Paramount because CBS, Paramount, they're together. You know the fact that they just merged with Skydance, and that just got approved after a legal settlement where $16 million was paid to Trump to settle a case. Then you know that the merger was approved between Skydance and Paramount. You know that. Then you read only a few days later during our show yesterday that Paramount said to Dana White, a well-known Trump supporter, said, we have an idea. We would like Disney not to have the rights to UFC. Instead, we would like the rights, and we will overpay. We'll double your rights fees. We'll get to $1.1 billion a year, and all you have to do is leave Disney behind. Forget about ESPN and come with me. Dana White said, I don't need much time. I need 48 hours, not even. Let me just shop it a wee bit. Let me see if I can get someone to do a little match, and then realize, wait a minute, I got to go with Paramount. This is a deal that, of course, we're going to do because this makes everybody happy, except Disney. Coincidence? I think not. So this deal gets announced, and you may recall that, as I told you, Dana White involved with Trump. Did you know that David Ellison, the chairman of Skydance, yes, the Ellison family, the son of Larry Ellison, Oracle, you may have heard of this, you may not have, but plenty of money, like with a B, not an M. David Ellison meets with President Trump on several occasions at different UFC events. There are deals that are being talked about, and I remind you that I'm involved with CBS. I'm thrilled for CBS and Paramount. It happens to be a great deal to get the UFC. While it may be right now an overpay, what John Skipper would have taught you on Pablo Torre Finds Out during the sporting class is that these overpays tend to not be overpays as the years pass. But what got a huge amount of attention, and we had no way to know this yesterday because we were live and it was happening real time, is that it was the pay-per-view part of this that was going to be spoken about the most. What do I mean? The UFC is used to a pay-per-view model, which means if you have a fighter you like, you buy that fight. If you have a fight between fighters you don't care much about, then don't buy that fight. But if you're going to buy a fight that has a fighter you like, you're likely going to pay money that you may not be comfortable paying, and you're only getting that fight, as opposed to paying that same amount of money over the course of a few months and getting a full channel that has Mission Impossible movies and various other things. Which is a better plan? Pay-per-view or the subscription plan? Hard to know, because the subscription plan means that you're paying for everything. We talked about what bundling is. We talked about the fact that it's cord cutting, but now everyone is getting so many different streamers that they're ending up paying more money than they were on occasions when they had cable. Well, now the next natural conversation is, well, now that there's no more pay-per-view with the UFC, all of the UFC fans are going to have to get Paramount. That must have been the point. So once they have Paramount, then they're thinking to themselves, well, wait a minute. I'm paying for it on all sorts of different months when there may not be a particular UFC event that interests me. So the talk yesterday was all about how great it is that the pay-per-view model has gone away. And there were quotes by all sorts of sports media people saying pay-per-view is archaic. Nobody wants to do that anymore. And my argument has always been, well, wait a minute. Pay-per-view is the ultimate in, hey, what's the value proposition? Because I'm only buying this if I want it, and then I'm evaluating what the price is, and then I get to decide how badly I really want it. It's the same thing with any disposable income that you spend. Generally, you don't do it with milk and eggs and groceries, but you do it with a night out or with some sort of purchase of an item that you don't need, but you'd like. You evaluate whether or not you work that into your budget, whether or not you can afford it. That is the essence of pay-per-view, is does this make sense for me and how I derive pleasure and how I allocate resources? But pay-per-view now purportedly is gone. Except Dana White came out late yesterday and said, I don't really understand what everybody's talking about. Almost being like, hey, you guys all got it wrong. You forgot to read the details. And I was reading what Dana White was saying, thinking to myself, what did I miss? Is it not $1.1 billion a year? Is it more than the U.S. rights? No, it's only the U.S. rights. Here's what happened. Pay-per-view is still very much in play. As a matter of fact, Dana White came out and said, yeah, we appreciate the 1.1 billion from Paramount, but I should point out that if we want to do a pay-per-view event, we still can. We can do special one-off events and make them pay-per-view. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, what exactly did Paramount buy? It seems to me Paramount must have bought the ordinary slate, the 43 events, the numbered events. Does that not include the White House? That seems like a special event. Is a special event defined as a UFC fight that takes place at an arena or at a location that is not ordinary? So that means like Vegas, not special. Saudi Arabia, not special. White House, special. Wait, does that mean the White House could be pay-per-view? And Dana White said, not so fast. We think that the White House may end up on CBS, on big CBS. And that's why we love the Paramount deal, because it comes with CBS. I remind you why Adam Silver didn't like Warner Brothers with the NBA. He wanted some sort of main network affiliation. And Paramount has CBS. So can you imagine that what used to be a pay-per-view for every single UFC fight now could end up on free TV? That's amazing. What's the downside of that? Oh, what if someone like Conor McGregor comes back and wants to do a fight that's going to be a huge fight, and CBS says, I'd like that fight, and Dana White says, hold on, slow your roll. I'm going to put this one on pay-per-view. So I'm not only going to make people buy Paramount, subscribe to Paramount, but then when it's a fighter they really want to watch, then I'm going to make them pay more. So what does that remind you of? Does it remind you of like Netflix, where you pay one amount per month and you think you're getting all quality all the time, and then all of a sudden you look and you're just like, God, that movie stinks? Or wait a minute, where are these first-run movies? Or when you subscribe to another service like Amazon and you're thinking, wow, this will be great until I have to watch the pickup. But wait, there's a first-run movie available. Oh, criminy, I got to pay $19.99 for it. Are you noticing what the pattern is? New run movies on streamers, they're pay-per-view. You have to rent them or buy them. Now, you could buy them for $24.99, rent them for $19.99. You want to save the $5, watch it once. You want to pay me an extra $5, and you can watch it as many times as you want, and it ends up life is short. You watch it once only. You may not even like it. It's an amazing business concept that's going on here. I have to give props right now to both sides of a deal, which is how a deal happens. This was critical for Skydance to get in the live event game. Critical as part of the merger with Paramount to walk off and away from that approved merger and say, look, this is what it will mean. This is the powerful financial force that we are, layoffs notwithstanding, that we can overpay for UFC for now. From UFC's standpoint, they get to say as part of their new venture, and they get to have Mark Shapiro out there going on late night talk shows. Well, not really, but going out there and saying, hey, look at the value of UFC. We were in talks with ESPN, but this is a double. They were at 550. We're now at 1.1. That seems like a very convenient way to do the math. Hey, we love you, man. Let's do the double. And all of a sudden, in and out, notwithstanding, you do a little animal style and you got yourself a deal. This UFC Paramount deal is going to be extraordinarily interesting as it unravels during the course of the next number of years. Let's see what happens. But when the first pay-per-view fight comes out, you're going to come back to this show and say, I knew it. Does anything bother you more than a blackout? Not a brownout, a blackout. And I don't mean anything other than from a sports standpoint. Is there anything worse when you're trying to watch a game and then you click to it and you say, oh, I can't believe it. I can't watch this. My Hulu Live or YouTube TV or whatever the case is, we don't get that channel. So I can't watch the Yankees, but if I would buy the app, and that's $24.99 a month, but I don't want to do that. So I want to watch a game because I think it's exciting, and then you turn it, and it goes right to blackout. It's frustrating. I would tell you, Coca. I mean, no, I'd say in my career, the number one issue people brought to me was a fire sale and why Wayne Huizenga did it, why it looks like we were doing it. That would be number one. I think certainly top 10. I was going to say top 5, but I don't want to use it just for purposes of this story. But one of the top 10 complaints that I would get during the course of those 16 years in Florida, 18 overall, is, man, what is it with the blackouts in Major League Baseball? And Major League Baseball has figured out that local blackouts are a mistake. While they exist right now in regional sports network deals, the reason why the blackouts exist is there is something called a home territory. And a home territory is defined for each team. As a matter of fact, when you buy a team, one of the exhibits to the agreement to buy a team that is an agreement with Major League Baseball, which is all part of buying a franchise, you have to have an agreement not just with the seller, but also with MLB and the commissioner and the other owners, is the agreement spells out what your home territory is. Why is that important? Because that's what you have to sell. The theory is that when you have a home territory, you go to a network and you say, we are exclusive in this territory. If someone wants to watch baseball, they're going to watch our team, and the only way to watch our team is on your channel. Pay us money. There's a reason why in South Florida we didn't allow the Yankees to be shown over the air. We had the right to say no, because we didn't want people watching Yankees games instead of Marlins games. Now, once MLB.TV comes along and you can buy the entire network, or then you can buy apps, you can understand that our objections ended up being like blowing in the wind, because there's nothing we could do about it. If there's someone in the Florida market who wants to only watch the Yankees, they now have the ability to only watch the Yankees, even right in our home territory. Fine. I actually have come to grips with what that reality is. But yesterday, there is something that took place that could put an end to all blackouts, but it could come in a form that is extremely scary, and that is the end of an antitrust exemption. Now, don't panic, baseball fans. This is not the antitrust exemption that deals with how baseball operates. This is the antitrust exemption that was generated back in the 60s, like 1961 to be exact, when there was an act that was passed that basically allowed a broadcasting antitrust exemption for all the teams to enjoy. What that means is that hockey, football, basketball, and baseball were able to do blackouts because of an antitrust exemption, because absent the antitrust exemption, the act of having a blackout, by definition, is a violation of antitrust. So, why is this even on my radar and therefore on your radar? Because in a statement that was just released yesterday, the Judiciary Committee has sent a letter to each of the 4 main commissioners. I'm sorry, when we do the side note, Coca, the head table of commissioners, it's hockey, it's football, it's basketball, it's baseball. This letter did not go to the WNBA. This letter did not go to Major League Soccer. Sorry, Don. This letter did not go to the Lacrosse League. This letter went to the top 4 leagues as an indication of what's the top. The reason that it went to these 4 commissioners, obviously Adam Silver, NBA, Roger Goodell, NFL, Gary Bettman, NHL, and Rob Manfred, MLB, is that they are now being forced to meet with this committee to explain in their mind why the broadcast antitrust exemption is still relevant today. Because the thing is, with the advent of streaming and the advent of pay-per-view, which really is what the streaming apps are for an individual team, you are paying to view each of the 162 games. Eventually, you get to the point where you can pay for a game. That is truly pay-per-view. That is where we are. And the reason why the Judiciary Committee wants to look at it is they had a very simple explanation. The current state of the sports broadcasting market has changed considerably since the 1960s. The majority of sports viewership now occurs outside of traditional network broadcasting. Think about that statement. The majority of sports viewership now occurs outside of traditional network broadcasting, a concept that would have been out of this world insane to think about in the 60s. It was insane to think about in the 90s. In the 2000s, you're seeing a sprinkle, but you're like, no, it can't be. In the 2010s, you're like, I see something weird happening. I know it's happening, but it's not happening quickly. Then COVID hits, and then you say to yourself, well, hold on. Not only is this happening, it's happening at a speed that's so insane that it'll never turn back. The world of sports broadcasting is now forever changed. Why is the government looking to repeal the antitrust exemption? What would be the benefit, do you think, of the Judiciary Committee coming down on these leagues? What do you think the president's involvement is in getting rid of that antitrust exemption? What does it allow him to say to his base? Hey, this is about you. This is about me recognizing the trouble and pain you have with your streamers and everything else you're doing, and I'm trying to help out the little man. Until you realize that, in fact, there's not a lot of little people who are being helped out at all. That at the end, whether the sports antitrust exemption, the broadcast antitrust exemption goes away or not, red alert, everybody. The elimination of the antitrust exemption in broadcasting will have zero impact on the cost for you to watch games or go to games. Zero. Whether it exists, whether it doesn't exist, the way the economics work in sports media, totally different now. The manifestation of revenue, the way that it comes to these companies is by making sure that you are paying more now, all in, for the things you want to watch than you were before. And whether or not you can watch a game in market, not in market, out of market, those lines are all going to blur, I promise. But if you thought that the blur would lead to some sort of relief, you're mistaken. My view has always been that if we want progress, which we all want, and that's what we invest in, research, development, you want progress, whether it's the drug companies, believe me, they want progress. People say they don't want to cure cancer. They do. There's always going to be the next thing, the next reason for pills and medicine, etc. They need to show that there is some sort of, to their shareholders, that there's something good happening. Presidents are no different. The shareholders are the voters. They've got to show that there is something going on that is somehow making their lives better, their lives easier, even if it's not true. Because the truth is, what is true matters way less in politics, way less in business than what is perceived to be true. If it is perceived by the customer that the company is a good company, a fair company, a company that takes care of its customers, takes care of employees, then even if you're paying more, you will be fine with it because of this feeling you have. It's why so much money gets spent on making you feel better about the purchases you've already made, so you'll make them again. It's actually the most fascinating marketing I've come across, which is I want you to keep spending money in ways where you don't even realize what you're spending. It's perfect. The reason why no one knows what they're spending on streaming is because they don't know what they're spending on streaming, because there's bundles available. There are deals available. It can be $8.99 and then it's $14.99. All of these things that are happening. If you sign up now, you get 2 months free. If you sign up now, you get an iPhone. Think about all the deals you're getting. And then realize that all of them are really for the same purpose. They're all to draw you in. Once you're in, then it's on automatic pay, or then it's just part of what you do, part of what you become used to doing. And then when you're used to doing it, you tend to keep doing it. It's the psychology of the consumer. And the psychology of the consumer is studied by the business because that's how to extract the most out of the consumer. It's almost like a parlor game. It's almost like a magic trick, actually. But the funny part is that inside of the business, when the commissioners are going to meet with the Judiciary Committee and talking about these things, they're going to have you believe that no, what they need with this antitrust exemption, they need it for the benefit of the people. So both sides of an issue are actually going to say it's for the benefit of the people. And the worst thing is that neither side is for the benefit of the people. Why do I know it? Because sadly, I've done it. Instead, you look at the Judiciary Committee, you look at each other, and you just say, it's just business. This is nothing personal.